Ames Harper, 38, was the kind of high school math teacher who made numbers feel like a puzzle worth solving. In suburban Denver, Colorado, his sharp humor and patient demeanor won over students and parents alike. After the final bell, he coached the boys' soccer team, his voice carrying across the field with the same zeal he brought to weekend hikes with his kids, Lily, 10, and Caleb, 7. His world revolved around his family, his classroom, and the quiet rhythm of their ranch-style home, nestled in a neighborhood where kids pedaled bikes under sprawling cottonwoods and neighbors traded waves over picket fences. His wife, Emily, 36, was a dynamo, a marketing executive at a glossy downtown Denver firm. Always polished in crisp blazers and stilettos, her ambition and quick charm had landed her high-profile clients. But her late nights, hushed phone calls, and distracted glances had crept into their marriage like frost. James felt the chill, fewer shared jokes, more curt replies, but he pinned it on her demanding career. She's just buried in work, he told himself, silencing the doubt that gnawed at him. Their 12th anniversary was his chance to mend the cracks. He secured a table at Skyview Bistro, a rooftop restaurant with jaw-dropping views of the city, a place Emily had adored since their early dates. He'd spent weeks orchestrating every detail, even collaborating with a local jeweler to craft a silver necklace, its delicate pendant engraved with their wedding date, June 14, 2013. It wasn't extravagant, but it was heartfelt, a symbol of the life they'd forged: 2 kids, a home filled with laughter, a dozen years of memories. James rehearsed a speech in his head, words to evoke their first dance under a Colorado sunset, when their love felt unbreakable. As he slipped the necklace box into his jacket pocket and headed to the restaurant, a quiet hope stirred within him. At Skyview Bistro, the atmosphere was electric. The hostess led them to a prime window table, where Denver's skyline shimmered like a constellation against the dusk. Emily, in a sleek black dress, her blonde hair swept into a low bun, flashed a smile that, for a fleeting moment, reminded James of the woman he'd married. He poured Napa Valley Merlot, the bottle's deep red catching the candlelight. The restaurant buzzed with clinking glasses and soft jazz, the city's lights painting a perfect backdrop. James raised his glass, his pulse quickening, ready to deliver the words he'd practiced, words to pull them back from the edge, to remind Emily of the vows they'd made. For that brief moment, as their eyes met over the candle's glow, the distance between them seemed to dissolve, and anything felt possible. The dinner at Skyview Bistro had started with a fragile warmth, the kind that made James Harper believe, if only for a moment, that he could salvage his marriage. The Denver skyline glittered beyond the window, a cascade of lights mirroring the hope in his chest. Emily's smile, rare and fleeting, had felt like a lifeline as he poured the Napa Valley Merlot, its deep red catching the candle's glow. His hand rested on the necklace box in his pocket, the silver pendant engraved with their wedding date, a symbol of the life he was fighting for. James, 38, a high school math teacher and soccer coach, had rehearsed his speech to rekindle the spark with Emily, 36, the driven marketing exec whose distance had grown like a shadow over their 12-year marriage. But as he raised his glass, heart pounding, ready to speak, Emily leaned forward, her face eerily calm, and shattered everything. "James, I've been seeing someone else for 2 years," she said, her voice steady, devoid of warmth. "I'm done." The words landed like a sledgehammer. The restaurant's hum, clinking glasses, soft jazz, faded to a dull roar. James's hand froze on his glass, the Merlot trembling slightly. His mind scrambled, searching her eyes for a crack, a hint of regret, a sign this was a cruel joke. Nothing. Her gaze was cold, resolute, as if she'd rehearsed this moment. "Who?" he asked, his voice low but firm, betraying none of the storm raging inside. Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening around her napkin. "Travis. From work. It's real. Travis." The name burned. James pictured him instantly, the slick creative director from Emily's firm, always lingering at her office galas with his tailored suits and easy grin. James had noticed the glances they'd exchanged, the way Travis's hand brushed her arm a second too long. He dismissed it as paranoia, convincing himself it was just Emily's charm at work. Now, the truth seared through him, each memory a fresh cut. 2 years. Not a fling, not a mistake, a deliberate, sustained betrayal. His kids, Lily and Caleb, flashed in his mind, their laughter, their trust in their parents' world. How could she? The air felt thick, the candles flickered taunting. James's pulse thundered, a mix of rage, humiliation, and grief threatening to spill over. He could have shouted, slammed the table, demanded answers. But something deeper, pride, maybe, or survival, held him back. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing him crumble. Instead, in a move that stunned even himself, he smiled. a slow, deliberate curve of his lips. "To your new chapter, then," he said, clinking his glass against hers. The faint chime echoed in the silence between them. Emily's brows furrowed, her composure slipping for the first time that night. She'd expected tears, anger, a scene, anything but this eerie calm. "James," she started, but he cut her off with a slight shake of his head, taking a measured sip of wine. Inside, he was fracturing. 2 years of lies, of late-night client meetings, of Emily's distracted glances at her phone while their kids slept. He thought of Lily's drawings taped to the fridge, Caleb's soccer games where Emily had started showing up late or not at all. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a wrecking ball aimed at their family. Yet, as he sat there, the necklace box heavy in his pocket, a clarity began to form. This wasn't the end of his story, it was the start of a fight. Not with fists or shouts, but with something sharper, truth. Emily shifted uncomfortably, her fingers drumming the table. "You don't have to act like this," she said, her voice tinged with irritation, as if his restraint was an accusation. "Like what?" James asked, his tone almost conversational, eyes locked on hers. "Like you're fine," she snapped, then softened, glancing away. "I didn't want to hurt you." The lie hung between them, flimsy and transparent. James leaned back, folding his arms. "Does Travis make you happy?" he asked, the question simple but pointed, like a blade testing her armor. Emily's lips parted, but no answer came. "It's complicated," she muttered finally, her gaze dropping to the tablecloth. That hesitation, that crack in her certainty, told James everything. She wasn't sure. She'd gambled their family for a fantasy, and now, faced with his unexpected poise, doubt was creeping in. The waiter approached, oblivious to the tension, offering dessert menus with a practiced smile. Emily waved him off, but James held up a hand. "I'll take a look," he said, flipping through the pages as if nothing had happened. He ordered a slice of key lime pie, his favorite, and an espresso. "You should try the creme brulee," he suggested, glancing at Emily with a faint, unreadable smile. She stared, incredulous. "How can you act like this isn't a big deal?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. James set the menu down, meeting her eyes. "Because you've made your choice, Emily. Me falling apart won't change that." The words were calm, but they carried a weight that made her flinch. For the first time that night, Emily looked small, her confidence unraveling under the spotlight of his composure. James Harper sat across from Emily at Skyview Bistro, the Denver skyline a glittering mockery of the life he'd thought they shared. The candlelight flickered, casting shadows over her face as she squirmed under his gaze. Moments ago, she dropped her bombshell, 2 years of infidelity with Travis, her coworker, and her decision to leave. James, 38, a high school math teacher and soccer coach, had responded with a chilling calm, toasting her new chapter, while his heart splintered. Inside, rage and betrayal churned, but he refused to let her see him break. Emily's faltering confidence, her "it's complicated," when asked if Travis made her happy, had given him an edge. Now, as the waiter cleared their plates, James leaned back, his mind racing toward a truth he'd kept buried for months. The air was thick with tension, the restaurant's soft jazz a cruel contrast to the chaos at their table. Emily's phone buzzed again, her third notification in minutes. She glanced at it, her face draining of color, her fingers trembling as she swiped the screen. James watched, his expression neutral, but his pulse quickened. He knew what she was seeing, a single photo, sent from an anonymous number. It showed her and Travis, arms entwined at a Boulder winery, the timestamp unmistakable, 6 months ago, during a work conference she'd claimed to attend alone. "What's wrong?" James asked, his voice laced with faint concern, sipping his espresso. Emily's eyes darted to him, wide with panic. "What have you done?" she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper, as if the other diners might hear her world unraveling. Here was the twist James had held close. He'd known about her affair for months. The late-night texts, the client dinners that stretched past midnight, the way Emily flinched when he reached for her hand. He'd seen the signs. At first, he'd blamed himself, wondering if his long hours grading papers or coaching had pushed her away. But then he'd spotted Travis's black SUV parked 2 streets over, late at night, its license plate seared into his memory. That's when he'd hired Rachel, a private investigator with a reputation for discretion. Rachel's reports were devastating. Photos of Emily and Travis at an Aspen boutique hotel, receipts from candlelit dinners in Vail, even a recorded voicemail where Emily laughed about James's boring life, calling him too predictable. To notice her double life. Each piece of evidence was a dagger, but James had stayed silent, building a case, waiting for the right moment to strike. Now, that moment was here. Emily's phone buzzed again. Another photo, her and Travis kissing in a parked car, taken just weeks ago. She shoved the device into her purse, her hands shaking. "This isn't funny, James," she said, her voice cracking. "Who's sending these?" He raised an eyebrow, setting his cup down with deliberate care. "I don't know," he lied, his tone smooth. "Maybe someone who knows the truth." Emily's breath hitched, her eyes searching his face for a tell. She found none. James's composure was a weapon, and he wielded it with precision, letting her stew in her own paranoia. The waiter returned, offering dessert menus. Emily waved him off, her movements jerky, but James took one, flipping through it casually. "I'll have the key lime pie," he said, then glanced at her. "Creme brulee's still your favorite, right?" The question was a taunt, a reminder of the intimacy she'd thrown away. Emily glared, her facade crumbling. "Stop it," she snapped. "You're acting like this is a game." James folded the menu, his smile faint but unyielding. "Isn't it? You've been playing one for 2 years." Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, she looked trapped, her confidence eroded by the weight of her own choices. James's mind flashed to Lily and Caleb, asleep in their suburban Denver home, unaware that their mother had detonated their family. He thought of Lily's artwork pinned to the fridge, Caleb's soccer jersey folded on his chair, waiting for tomorrow's game. Emily's betrayal wasn't just against him, it was against them, their trust, their future. That thought steeled him. He wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for his kids, for the life they deserved. Rachel's evidence, photos, receipts, recordings, was locked in an encrypted folder, ready to be unleashed. But James wasn't ready to tip his hand fully. Not yet. He wanted Emily to feel the walls closing in, to question every move she'd made. Emily's phone vibrated again, this time a text. She didn't check it, but her knuckles whitened around her purse. "You're behind this," she accused, her voice low and venomous. James shrugged, taking a bite of the pie the waiter had just delivered. "If I were, would it change anything?" he asked, his tone almost gentle, but the words cut deep. "You made your choice, Emily. Travis, the lies, the life you wanted, it's all yours now." She flinched, her eyes glistening, but James felt no pity. Her tears, if real, were for herself, not for the family she'd fractured. The restaurant's ambience, laughter, clinking glasses, felt like a parallel universe. James leaned forward, his voice low. "What will you tell the kids?" The question landed like a punch. Emily's face crumpled, her breath catching. I'll figure it out," she stammered, but the words lacked conviction. She hadn't thought that far. Her plan, meticulous in its deceit, hadn't accounted for the fallout, their daughter's confusion, their son's questions. James's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone even. "You'll figure it out," he repeated, a bitter edge creeping in. "That's comforting." Emily's glare returned, defensive. "You don't have to make this harder," she said. James chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Harder for who, Emily?" "You." Her silence was answer enough. The air at Skyview Bistro was heavy, the Denver skyline a distant shimmer through the window. James Harper, 38, sat composed, his key lime pie half-eaten, while Emily's world unraveled across the table. Her phone, now silent in her purse, had betrayed her with photos of her and Travis, evidence of her 2-year affair, sent anonymously. James, a high school math teacher and soccer coach, had known for months, thanks to his private investigator, Rachel. Emily's confession earlier that night, she was leaving him for Travis, had been the spark he'd waited for. His calm response, a calculated toast to her new chapter, had thrown her off balance, and the photos had cracked her facade. Now, as she accused him of orchestrating the messages, her voice trembling with fear and fury, James leaned back, his face unreadable. Inside, he was a storm of grief and resolve, but this was his moment to take control. Emily's eyes burned into him, her knuckles white around her purse. "You're doing this," she said, her voice low, venomous. "You're trying to ruin me." James took a slow sip of espresso, setting the cup down with precision. "Ruin you?" he echoed, his tone almost curious. "I didn't make you lie for 2 years, Emily. I didn't make you choose Travis over our family." Her lips parted, but no defense came. The truth hung between them, sharp and undeniable. James's mind flashed to Lily and Caleb, asleep in their suburban Denver home, oblivious to their mother's betrayal. Their laughter, their trust, their future, it was all at stake. This wasn't just about his pain. It was about protecting them from the fallout of Emily's choices. He stood, slipping on his jacket, the necklace box still heavy in his pocket, a reminder of the hope he'd carried into this night. "I didn't do anything," he said, meeting her gaze. "You did." The words were a blade, and Emily flinched, her confidence shattered. James walked out, the restaurant's jazz fading behind him. The cool night air hit his face, and he took a deep breath, steadying himself. He pulled out his phone and dialed Rachel. "Send the rest," he said, his voice firm. To her, Travis, and their CEO. Rachel paused, her tone cautious. "This'll torch their careers, James." "You sure?" He stared at the city lights, his jaw tight. "They torch my family. Do it." Rachel didn't argue. "Consider it done," she said, and the call ended. James drove home, the quiet of his neighborhood a stark contrast to the chaos he'd left behind. Lily and Caleb were with a babysitter, their bedrooms dark. He sat in his study, the glow of his laptop casting shadows. Opening Rachel's encrypted folder, he reviewed the evidence. Photos of Emily and Travis at a Vail restaurant, hotel receipts from Aspen, a voicemail of Emily mocking his predictable life. Each file was a wound, but also a weapon. He wasn't just exposing her affair, he was ensuring consequences. Emily's firm, obsessed with its pristine image, wouldn't tolerate a scandal. Travis, her smug accomplice, would face the same reckoning. But James's true fight was for his kids. He wouldn't let Emily spin lies to their friends, their school, their community, painting herself as the victim while he rebuilt alone. By morning, the fallout began. Rachel's email, sent to Emily and Travis's work inboxes with their CEO copied, was a professional bombshell, a concise summary of their affair, backed by photos, receipts, and timelines. Emily's firm suspended her within hours, citing conduct unbecoming. Travis, the Golden Boy creative director, was sidelined pending an ethics review. Mutual friends flooded James's phone with texts, shocked and disgusted by Emily's deceit. His sister, Claire, called, her voice shaking. "I can't believe she did this, James. How are you holding up?" He exhaled, staring at a photo of Lily and Caleb on his desk. "I'm doing what I have to," he said. "For the kids." Emily called an hour later, her voice raw, frantic. "You're destroying me," she cried, tears choking her words. "My job, my reputation gone. Why would you do this?" James leaned back in his chair, his tone even but unyielding. "You destroyed us, Emily. You lied to me, to our kids, for 2 years. I'm just showing the truth." She sobbed, pleading. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I'll fix it, I swear." James's grip tightened on the phone, but his voice stayed steady. "You can't fix this. You chose Travis. You chose this life. Now live with it." He hung up, her cries echoing in his mind, but he felt no guilt. Her regret was too late, her promises hollow. Back at the restaurant, the night before, James had seen the first cracks in her armor, her panic, her doubt. Now, those cracks were canyons. He thought of the necklace, still in his jacket, its engraved date a relic of a marriage that no longer existed. He wouldn't give it to her. It was a symbol of his loyalty, not hers. Instead, he focused on the future. He'd already contacted his lawyer, Natalie, to prepare for divorce and custody. Rachel's evidence would ensure he got primary custody of Lily and Caleb, protecting them from Emily's instability. He'd enroll them in counseling, shielding their hearts as best he could. This was his turning point, not just a reaction to betrayal, but a deliberate step toward reclaiming his life. The restaurant's memory lingered, the clinking glasses, the jazz, the moment Emily's world began to collapse. James had walked away, but not in defeat. He was fighting, not with anger, but with strategy, using truth as his weapon. Emily thought she'd outsmarted him, but she'd underestimated his resolve. As he closed his laptop, a quiet strength settled over him. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where he'd protect his kids and build a life free of her lies. The fallout from that night at Skyview Bistro was swift and merciless. James Harper, 38, had walked away from Emily's confession, her 2-year affair with Travis, and her plan to leave, armed with a quiet resolve. His strategic move, orchestrated with private investigator Rachel, had sent damning evidence of the affair to Emily and Travis's workplace, unraveling their careers. Now, weeks later, James sat in his suburban Denver home, the morning light filtering through the kitchen. Lily, 10, and Caleb, 7, were at school, their routines a fragile anchor in the storm. James, a high school math teacher and soccer coach, sipped coffee, staring at a photo of his kids on the counter. The necklace he'd meant to give Emily, engraved with their wedding date, sat untouched in a drawer, a relic of a life she'd destroyed. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. James's lawyer, Natalie, leveraged Rachel's evidence, photos, receipts, recordings of Emily's affair, to secure primary custody of Lily and Caleb. Emily's attempts to paint herself as a victim crumbled under the weight of her own lies. The judge, unimpressed by her tearful pleas, granted her supervised visits, citing her pattern of deceit. Emily's marketing career was in tatters. Her firm, desperate to protect its image, had fired her after the scandal. Travis, once the charming creative director, faced an ethics probe and was let go, fleeing to Seattle to escape the wreckage. Their affair, built on stolen moments and lies, collapsed when Travis cut contact, leaving Emily to face the consequences alone. She'd moved to a cramped apartment in Lakewood, a far cry from their spacious Denver home. Mutual friends, once loyal, distanced themselves, their texts to James filled with shock and disdain for Emily's betrayal. His sister, Claire, had visited the day after the news broke, hugging him tightly. "You're stronger than I could have been," she'd said, glancing at Lily's drawings on the fridge. James shrugged, his voice steady. "It's for them." But alone at night, the weight of it hit. 2 years of lies, the family he'd fought for, gone. Yet, each morning, he rose for his kids, determined to shield them from the chaos. Emily's calls had tapered off, her initial anger giving way to desperation. One voicemail, left at 2 a.m., trembled with sobs. "I've lost everything, James. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" He deleted it without responding. Her regret was real but irrelevant. She'd chosen Travis, chosen deceit, and now faced the life she'd built. James focused on Lily and Caleb, enrolling them in counseling to process their mother's absence. At dinner, Caleb asked, "Is Mom coming back?" James set down his fork, choosing his words carefully. "Mom made some choices that hurt us. But I'm here, and we're okay." Caleb nodded, his small hand squeezing James's, and Lily added, "We've got you, Dad." Their trust fueled him, a reminder of what he was fighting for. Life began to shift. James returned to coaching soccer, the field a refuge where he could lose himself in the game. At a community art fair, he met Sarah, a 34-year-old photographer who'd moved from Portland. Her warm laugh and easy way with Lily and Caleb, helping them frame photos of their hikes, drew him in. James was cautious, his trust scarred, but Sarah didn't push. They bonded over coffee runs and Red Rocks trail walks, her presence a quiet comfort. One evening, as Sarah helped Lily with a school project, Caleb whispered to James, "She's nice, Dad." James smiled, ruffling his hair. "Yeah, she is." A year later, James's life had transformed. His teaching earned him a district award, his students cheering at the ceremony. His woodworking hobby, sparked by Sarah's encouragement, became a small business, with her designing a sleek website to showcase his custom pieces. Friends rallied around him, their support a balm after the isolation of betrayal. One night, as James, Sarah, and the kids watched fireflies dance in their backyard, the Denver skyline glowing in the distance, Sarah asked, "Do you ever think about her?" James paused, the question stirring a faint echo of pain. "She's a lesson," he said, his voice steady. "Not a regret." He pulled Sarah close, her warmth grounding him. "This is home now." Emily's final attempt at contact came in a handwritten letter, its edges worn, as if she'd hesitated before sending it. "I see now what I lost," she wrote. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm sorry." James read it by the fire pit, the words heavy but powerless. He tossed the letter into the flames, watching it curl and vanish. "Her story's done," he told Sarah, who nodded, squeezing his hand. Lily and Caleb ran up, giggling, their faces lit with joy. James joined them, chasing fireflies under the stars, free at last. The scars remained, faint but present, a reminder of the fight he'd won. James had rebuilt not just a life, but a home, rooted in trust, love, and the laughter of his kids. As he looked at Sarah, her eyes reflecting the firelight, he knew this was his victory, a future he'd earned, unshackled from the past.